His big deal was, okay, I'm looking at number 4. This is, I feel like, it's most important here. Non-violence, okay? Martin Luther King and a lot of civil rights leaders, okay, they wanted these protests to be non-violent, okay? Because if people saw non-violent protest, you know, on TV news, you know, something like that, and they saw these protesters, you know, getting sprayed by a hose, being dragged out of a diner. Okay? Yeah, gas them, whatever. Okay? You think that builds sympathy for the movement? You think people will think, man, this shouldn't be happening? Okay? But if they retaliated, would it be a different story? Yes, it would. And in the late 60s, you know, when some groups of blacks started to retaliate, it didn't turn out as well. Okay? So nonviolence, okay? Civil disobedience, okay? Sometimes they would purposely, okay, you know, drink from the white fountain. They would use the white bathroom. They would, you know, sit in the front of the bus. Okay? Acts of civil disobedience, they get thrown in jail on purpose, okay, to make an example of themselves. Okay, Martin Luther King did this very thing as well. Okay, when he, you've heard of his famous letter from the Birmingham jail, and that was it. Okay, he got thrown in jail. I can't remember for what. Some protests in Birmingham, and he an act of civil disobedience. He wrote this letter from Birmingham jail explaining, you know, some of the things they were fighting for, and yeah, it made us laugh. Okay, Christian love and forgiveness, yeah, other biggies. But Martin Luther King was big because, you know, he could reach both blacks and whites. His most famous speech, you read a few sections of it in your assessments, was the I Have a Dream speech in 1963 on March on Washington. Okay, and then there were formations of these different human rights groups. Southern Christian Leadership Conference was one of them, as it's explained to it. Okay. All right, I'll explain this really quick. Remember the Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court case? Okay, this was kind of one of the first tests of it. Okay, called the Little Rock Nine. These 9 African American students in 1957 coming into this Little Rock Central High School, and do you think they were accepted with open arms? No. Okay, in fact, when it came down to it, okay, these Army troopers had to escort them in so that they could actually get in the door, and these troopers one trooper had to sit with each student, they were to protect them. Okay, all right. So that's that in short order. Okay, some high points in the 1960s. 2 important things that I want to talk about: sit-in campaigns, okay, and freedom rides. Okay, sit-in campaigns. Think of a 1950s diner with the lunch counter there, okay, with the stools there, and African Americans, especially in the South, were not allowed to sit at those lunch counters. Okay, so these sit-ins, these lunch counter sit-ins, they would sit at those lunch counters, okay, and just bear the consequences. Okay, they'd be spit at, they'd be, you know, clubbed, they'd be dragged by their hairs, you know, mustard and ketchup smeared in their face, you name it. It happened. Okay, so very brave people that were part of these protests. Okay, the other protests I'm going to talk about, and we're going to read a first-hand account of the freedom ride next time. Okay, these freedom rides. Remember the Montgomery bus boycott? Okay, it was in discrimination in public transportation, and these freedom rides were protests of discrimination on interstate bus routes. Okay, buses that went from state to state. And in the facilities, okay, associated with them, you know, the bus stops and the buses themselves. Okay, and a big part of these, okay, was this Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, college students, and then this Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. Okay, so this is both of these, the hottest parts, I guess you could say, 1961. Big time, big year for these movements. Sit-in campaigns and freedom rides, very important. Okay, well, let's move on. Almost there. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. yeah, themes and characteristics of these protests. Okay, growing involvement of college students, both white and black. Okay, and the white college students who were protesting were treated almost more horribly than the blacks. Okay, because the whites felt that these white protesters were traitors to the race, and so they were somehow even more horrible than the African Americans themselves. Okay, they had a vision of empowerment of ordinary blacks. Okay, commitment to non-violent resistance, as I explained. Okay, because you are going to get more sympathy if you're non-violent, you don't retaliate, than if you do. And then lots of organizations like that core of the student nonviolent community, those kind of things. Okay. And last slide, I believe. And these three things are key. Okay, these are the major victories came out in the early 60s, 1964 actually. Okay, so Civil Rights Act of 1964, okay, prohibited racial discrimination in employment, hospitals, schools, and public accommodations. And also, okay, gender was taken into account. They banned discrimination on the grounds of gender. And then the Voting Rights Act, okay, it prohibited discriminatory voting practices. And then the 24th Amendment, outlawed poll taxes. So 15th Amendment granted non-whites the right to vote, but it took the Voting Rights Act and the 24th Amendment for them to actually really, under the law, achieve the vote. Okay? So big deal. So do you see the difference, okay, between civil rights and the Civil War?
Yes.
Okay. When was the Civil War? 1860s. Okay, civil rights, basically, 1960s. Okay, 100 years apart, so big difference. Okay, so hopefully you took good notes. You'll do well on the quiz.